Hey everybody, so I'm going to show you how to build yourself an awesome, sweet chicken coop run right here. So this right here is the beginning of a 6-foot by 6-foot lean-to chicken run. Now it's going to be great, it's going to be spacious, you're going to be able to walk in it. I'm going to point out a few of the things that make this a good design. Hopefully you can learn a few things to help you and when you're building your own or whatnot. But one thing that I do when I build these is I make all of this come over the edge here. And you're like, well, wait a second, the chickens are going to get themselves caught on that and it's going to hurt them. And I put the wire on the inside of the coop because then when you're outside of it, it looks so much nicer to have the wire on the inside than to have it on the outside. And then you see the staples and you see all that. But then you think, well, what are we going to do with these pointy parts? Because the chickens are going to hurt themselves, it's going to get infected, blah, blah, blah. It's causing problems. You have your chickens lose an eye or whatever, and it just isn't a good way to take care of your chickens. Well, what you do is you bend it over the side, all the sharp sides, you bend over the side, and everything that's exposed, this is all dull, this is all the top of the wire, and there's no sharp points here. And the sharp points where you're cutting it, you fold over on the side. And what this does is then when I bring this wall up, like so, this wall is going to go inside. It's going to go inside and it's going to overlap this right here, and then I'll come back with the angle grinder. You'll see this will be right up against this, so you won't see any of these sharp edges at all here. But these sharp edges, you might see them poke out a little bit, and I'll take an angle grinder, or I'll just simply take another piece of wood and put that over there, and it'll reinforce the corners, and it will cover up all the sharp edges. But that way, none of those sharp edges, so you could do either one of those two things. But you want those sharp edges on the outside of your coop. You don't want them on the inside of your coop. Another thing when you're doing a lean-to, and it's not real hard to do, but what you want to do is you want to have a notch. You want to notch it out. You want to have a good notch in there. And then what that does is when you put that on your roof, like so. There you go. And when you have that notched in there, just like that, that adds an incredible amount of strength to your structure. And now you're gonna, of course, put screws, good heavy wood screws. Don't do the cheap screws on that for your structural screws. Don't do that. You want to use, these are good. They're galvanized, so they won't rust. But these aren't. They don't have what's called the shear strength. They don't have the same kind of strength as your heavier screws right here. These are your exterior grade wood screws, construction screws. They're heavier in your hand than drywall screws. They have much greater shear strength. So, and they'll bend, but they won't break. These can snap, and they shouldn't. If you built it with drywall screws using this design, you should be fine, but it won't be as strong as if you use exterior grade wood screws. Those are the strongest kind of screws that you can use. Little known fact about screws is it doesn't really matter which brand you get them. They're actually made to standardized specifications. So if you go to Lowe's or you go to Menards or you go to your local hardware store and you get screws, drywall screws. They're the same material because they all have different suppliers. and the suppliers are competing with each other, but it's standardized across the board what kind of metals, how much metal they use, and all that stuff, how much they weigh, all that stuff. So it doesn't matter what brand of screws or nails you get. But that being said, there's definitely a lot of different kinds of screws and nails. So there's two different kinds of galvanized screws, for example. There's mechanically galvanized, and then there's something called like dip galvanized, and the mechanically is much better for that. But I've never had any issues with galvanized screws, but they've always worked fine. But I just prefer, and I use them in certain points of my construction that's not going to be high stress. But when I'm attaching these rafters, when I'm screwing down these rafters, I'm going to go with the nice screws, the heavy duty screws. And when I'm attaching these walls to each other, when I'm attaching these walls, closing that gap and putting another stud back there for reinforcement, when I'm doing that, I'm going to use the good, the better screws that are heavier weight, because those are the ones that will last. I mean, they're just stronger. They're heavier, they're stronger, they'll bend, but they will not break. I mean, I've tried taking stuff apart with them in them, and I'm telling you, you can't hardly break those screws. So anyway, that's this is going to be a beautiful run once it's finished.